Support for this podcast comes from the Central Valley Journalism Collaborative, connecting communities with the resources, infrastructure, and networks to ensure a vibrant local free press.
From KVPR in Fresno, this is Central Valley Daily. Happy Friday, it's November 1st. I'm Elizabeth Arcalian. Today and tomorrow, millions around the world are observing Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead.
We're not celebrating death, we're celebrating the lives of the individuals who are no longer with us, and we're carving out time to support one another in that grief.
Coming up in just a few minutes, we'll hear about the meaning behind this occasion, but first, today's headlines. A name change continues to cause controversy in a small Fresno County town. Yokuts Valley used to be called Squaw Valley, but the term squaw is considered derogatory to many. In 2023, the U.S. Department of Interior decided to replace the name at hundreds of sites nationally. In Fresno County, residents have resisted the name change. Last month, the Fresno Bee reported the signs announcing the town's new name were vandalized. Local authorities said they are in touch with Caltrans about the incidents. With 4 days left until the presidential election, local officials want residents to stay peaceful. That includes when casting their ballot. KVPR's Crescencio Rodriguez Delgado reports.
Election officials in Fresno County are reminding voters, when you go cast your vote, leave the campaigning behind. California law prohibits any type of voting intimidation or political displays within 100 feet of polling places. That includes ballot drop boxes. It comes down to even the clothing you wear. Here's Fresno County Elections Clerk James Coos.
Election workers will not process a voter that is engaged in electioneering activities or wearing visible electioneering material.
Fresno County District Attorney Lisa Smitkamp says her office will take complaints to ensure election workers and residents stay safe this election.
Do the right thing and be better than, your anger or your passion, and let the election happen peacefully and respectfully.
Several more Fresno County vote centers will open this weekend for in-person voting. For KVPR News, I'm Crescencio Rodriguez Delgado.
Biologists have made a surprising discovery at a wildlife refuge along the San Joaquin River. U.S. Fish and Wildlife announced this week they found 5 riparian wood rats. The animals were listed as endangered in 2000 due to loss of habitats. The last time they were actually seen at the refuge was 7 years ago. Valley Air officials are asking residents to avoid burning wood starting today. They say they want to limit the amount of harmful pollution during these colder months. These restrictions will be in place through February and apply to fireplaces, wood stoves, or outdoor fire pits.
Support for Central Valley Daily comes from the members of KVPR. Join at $8 or more per month and access ad-free NPR podcasts through NPR Plus. Give now at kvpr.org/donate.
And now to our main story. Today and tomorrow, millions of people around the world will take time to remember their loved ones. Dia de los Muertos, or Day of the Dead, has its roots in southern Mexico from Aztec culture. But the event has grown and is now celebrated in different parts of the world. Today we're talking about a hallmark of those celebrations, ofrendas, or altars. They're assembled with special items and details unique to the people who have died. For this, we visited Arte Américas in downtown Fresno. Arte Américas is a museum and the region's largest center for Latin American culture. I met the executive director, Arianna Chavez, at the door.
Hello. Hi, good morning. Thank you. Come on in.
She's been in this role for a year and a half and has plans to oversee major upgrades to the center.
At this point, we have just the first round of drawings from our architects.
Right now, Arte Américas is adorned with several ofrendas used to commemorate Dia de los Muertos. It's part of their exhibit honoring dead literary icons. These altars typically display the 4 elements: earth, wind, fire, and water. A signature detail is the bright orange marigold, known in Spanish as cempasúchil.
And the cempasúchil are, of course, of the earth, and the belief is that their bright colors and their strong aroma attract the spirits of the departed back to the ofrenda.
One of them pays homage to a Palestinian author. Broken pieces of concrete sit under a photo of Rafat al-Arir.
If I must die, you must live to tell my story.
At another display, we see a tribute to Juana Inés de la Cruz, believed to be one of the first feminists in Mexico's history.
Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz was a nun and a librarian, and chose her specific religious order so that she would have as much access as possible to her education.
There are also more modern tributes.
And what ofrenda is this that we're looking at here?
So we're standing in front of an ofrenda that was created in celebration of Gloria Anzaldúa. And Gloria Anzaldúa is widely regarded as one of our most prominent Chicana feminist voices.
Oh, wow. Now this one is, we're in like a breezeway. It's in front of all this natural light, and this has so many photographs and flowers.
In a bright blue hallway, we see one honoring Maria Felix, a renowned Mexican actress and cinema star. She's wearing a long black dress. Several photos lay among cloth that's laying amidst flowers and food.
I'm glad you picked up on the number of photographs included in this ofrenda. The idea here was actually to pay tribute to several people within this ofrenda. Formally, it's an ofrenda dedicated to the author Carlos Fuentes, but Carlos Fuentes as an individual was really inspired by Maria Felix and Dolores del Rio, who are both, of course, stars of Mexico's golden age of cinema. So he included, our artist included 3 photos, one to each of them.
In its ofrendas, Arte Américas is trying to strike a balance between the traditional and the contemporary. Chavez says there's no right or wrong way of setting up an altar if the intention is to remember a loved one. All of this got us wondering about the ways Mexican culture views death versus a more traditional U.S. perspective.
And can we take a seat now and talk a little further?
Sure, of course. Why don't we?
I spoke with Chavez about this as we sat in front of 2 colorful ofrendas.
So, Arianna, I wanted to talk a little bit more about the Mexican perspective on death. It seems very different than the standard Western perspective, and I think Dia de los Muertos really highlights that.
Sure. I think once upon a time, people saw Dia de Muertos as a celebration that might be dangerous or scary. You see a lot of skeletons, a lot of skulls, and sure, from a Western perspective that is kind of sanitized death and loss, that could read as a little scary. I think what's most important to think about during this time of year are really those individuals who are no longer with us, and this idea that is universally comforting. I think a lot of people hold this idea that those who pass on are always with them. And so if we think about spirits returning to us, it's kind of an extension of that idea that the individual never really leaves us, that love is always there, and we can always have them with us, right? We carve out time during this time of year for their spirits to come back, and I think the extent to which that is a spiritual experience really varies person to person.
I think a lot of people live in fear of, oh, what if I lost my parents, or what if I lost my child? Like, losing someone is still a painful experience, but this tradition also offers an opportunity to honor them and celebrate them and kind of find the silver lining in that whole experience, not just for you personally, but other family members and friends as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think I want to push back a little bit on the silver lining idea, because there are certainly circumstances of death that do not have a silver lining. Death can be completely nonsensical, right? November 1st is the day where we welcome back the spirits of the los angelitos, the little angels, the children that passed on. And so I think the idea when we're talking about a celebration of Dia de Muertos and a celebration, we're not celebrating death, we're celebrating the lives of the individuals who are no longer with us, and we're carving out time to support one another in that grief.
Yeah. So I'd love to pivot a little bit towards what Arte Américas is doing these days. You had mentioned a potential expansion. Tell us about some funding that the organization's received and what the plans are.
Sure. So a lot of people don't know this, but for the first 36 years, Arte Américas was largely managed by volunteers. And in 2023, we were recipients of funding that enabled us to hire our first full-time professional staff. And a majority of those funds, $4 million, were earmarked specifically for a renovation on our building. The building is, at its core, 114 years old, so there's a lot of work to be done. We occupy a pretty large footprint here in downtown Fresno. We own a full half of a city block, but we're actually only using about 60% of our facility right now. So the hope is to make everything fully functioning and accessible.
And you mentioned workshops that people can come and do. In what ways are you available to the community, and any plans to continue to expand that as the organization grows?
Definitely. So in our first year, the staff at Arte Américas has already expanded all of our programming. We have a bilingual storytime program that takes place twice a month. We also have programming every Thursday evening at 6 o'clock and every weekend, including a series that we call the Arte Workshops. But it's an opportunity for all ages to come and make art. Last weekend, we had, I think, about 30 people here making miniature ofrendas, and the style of art making varies from week to week.
And what about your personal story? How long have you been at Arte, and what are your kind of plans for things to evolve from here?
Sure. I think in some way I've always been at Arte. My mom was actually one of the co-founders of Arte Américas, and so I had the good fortune of growing up here. My first memories in my whole life are of seeing the galleries we're sitting in right now transform into galleries, right? Becoming galleries and turning something that was once a Bank of America administrative office into the Valley's largest Latino cultural arts center. So I moved away very intentionally to see how people do things elsewhere, and feel very fortunate to be home and to be a part of Arte's next chapter.
That was my conversation with Arianna Chavez at the Arte Américas Museum in downtown Fresno. Tomorrow night, starting at 4, Arte Américas will be hosting their event, the Cala Gala, an annual Dia de los Muertos celebration. And that does it for today's show. Today's episode was produced by Jonathan Linden, Crescencio Rodriguez Delgado, and KVPR, with support from the Central Valley Journalism Collaborative. I'm Elizabeth Arkalian. Find the latest local news anytime at kvpr.org.
No matter what happens in Washington, the NPR Politics Podcast is here for you. For the latest news, insights, and analysis from the election and beyond, listen to the NPR Politics Podcast.